By the time the sun cleared the bay, the Red Keep had already become a forge again, one that hammered law out of fear. Aegon sat with ink stains on his fingers and wax on his sleeve. The seal before him looked like something dead, drowned in crimson. Tywin Lannister spoke as if his words were nails driven into timber. He left no room for the wood to flex. Grand Maester Munkin wrote until his wrist cramped, and each time he dipped his quill he did it with the solemnity of a man signing a funeral shroud. The parchment was titled in thick black script, "The Sky Edict." Aegon hated the name. It sounded like a boast. It sounded like the sort of thing his Uncle Demon might have made and laughed at as it terrified lesser men. Yet Tywin insisted that men obeyed what sounded inevitable. Men obeyed storms more readily than prayers. "No flight above the city without leave," Tywin said, voice level, and his golden hand tapped the line. "No landings within the walls. No nests in the crownlands save those designated by the crown. Any egg found is crown property by right of survival." Luther Largent stood at the door like a boulder in gilded mail. His big hands relaxed on the haft of his spear. He watched Aegon as if measuring whether a boy could bear what was being placed on his shoulders. The captain of the city watch had seen mobs tear men apart. He had seen dragonfire cook stone. He knew what happened when fear became a crowd. Aegon's eyes scanned the next lines and felt his throat tighten. "Any who shelter an egg without leave shall lose their hand." Tywin's voice did not waver. "Make it cruel," he had said earlier. "Cruelty is a language even the starving understand." Aegon had argued until his voice went thin. "We cannot cut hands off half the city," he had said. Tywin had answered, soft and flat. "Then do it to the first, and you will not need to do it to the 100th. Now the words sat before Aegon like a blade waiting to be gripped. "What if they rise anyway?" Aegon asked, and the question slipped out in the quiet between candle flickers. He did not mean the nobles. He meant the small folk with clubs, the faith with torches, the men who had once climbed over each other to stab dying dragons in the Dragonpit. Tywin's blind eyes turned toward him. "Then we do not let them touch the sky," he said. "We remove the beasts from their reach." Aegon's mouth tasted of ash. "Dragonstone." Tywin's golden hand clicked once, as if pleased the boy could still follow a plan. "Dragonstone," he agreed. "A place made for them. A place where the wrong fires burn only rock." Munkin's quill paused. "Your Grace," the Maester said carefully, "the realm will hear that dragons gather on Dragonstone, and they will think of Valyria. They will think of conquest." "They can think," Tywin replied. "Thinking is better than rioting." Luther Largent shifted. "The streets are restless," he said. "Septon Eustace is shouting in Flea Bottom again. He has men listening." Tywin's jaw tightened. "Then you will put your cloaks between his shouting and my gates," he said. "If a crowd forms, you break it early. Do not let them believe they are many." "And if they won't break?" Largent asked, voice low. The ceiling darkened as a shadow passed over it. Wings, slow and immense. The candles shivered as if the air itself flinched. Tywin's golden hand rested on the parchment. Steady. "Then you remind them," he said softly, "that they are small." Aegon stared at the seal. He thought of the black dragon on the roof, crouched like a living gargoyle. He thought of the pale hatchlings fire-turning market stalls into torches. He thought of the Dragonmont's belly full of eggs pulsing with heat like hearts. He pressed the seal into the wax. The wax gave with a wet sigh, and when he lifted it, the three-headed dragon stared back at him from the imprint. Crisp, final. Munkin exhaled shakily, as if he had been holding his breath for days. Luther Largent bowed his head, not in reverence but in acceptance. Tywin's voice came quiet. "Now we name the office." Aegon's eyes lifted. "What office?" "The Warden of the Skies," Tywin said, and the words felt like a new chain being forged. "A man to count flights and riders, to enforce your edict when you cannot. A man who will become hated so you do not have to be, at least not yet." Aegon's stomach twisted. "Who?" Tywin's face did not change. but something in his posture tightened like a trap being set. "Not a man of prayer," he said. "Not a man of birth alone. A man who understands power without worshipping it." Luther Largent's gaze flicked to Tyland, then to Aegon, as if already guessing where the choice might land. Outside, the dragon's shadow moved again, slow as an eclipse. Aegon's fingers curled around the seal handle. He could feel wax cooling beneath it, hardening into law. "All right," he said, and his voice sounded older than it had the day before. "Name him." Tyland's golden hand tapped the parchment once more, and the candlelight made his metal fingers gleam like teeth. "First," he said, "we move your dragon to Dragonstone. Then we begin building a world that can survive under wings." Aegon rose from the table, black cloak brushing the floor. He walked toward the window and looked down at the city, at the smoke threads, the dim streets, the tiny moving people. He wondered how many of them would still be alive when the skies were full. He wondered whether any law could be strong enough to hold a dragon's hunger. Behind him, the wax seal cooled completely. And outside, the sky waited. Dragonstone greeted him with the smell of sulfur and salt, as if the island exhaled both fire and sea with every breath. Aegon arrived not with banners but with windburn and a tightness in his chest that never left now. His black dragon landed on the Dragonmont's shoulder and crouched there, watching the castle below as if weighing whether it was worth sparing. Men scattered when its shadow fell, then forced themselves back into place with the stiff obedience of those who had decided survival required pretending they were not afraid. Alan Balerion met him in the courtyard, flanked by sailors and a handful of handlers who looked as though they had aged a year in a week. "The cavern," Alan said quietly as they walked. "More eggs have cracked." Aegon's stomach twisted. "How many?" "2," Alan replied. "One died before it fully broke free. The other—" His gaze slid away. "The other is red as war. They found it on a terrace carved into black rock, where the wind could carry smoke away from the castle. The red hatchling, if hatchling was still the right word, strained against a post reinforced with iron and old chain, its wings half unfurled, its muscles flexing like a living engine. Steam rose from its nostrils in the cold air. Its eyes tracked every movement, bright and hungry. Aegon felt something in himself recoil. The red dragon's gaze did not feel like his black dragon's. It did not feel like strange affection pressed into a brow touch. It felt like a blade being measured against his throat. Then a woman stepped from the shadows of a pillar, and for a heartbeat the wind itself seemed to sharpen. Baela Targaryen wore riding leathers, scuffed boots, a dagger at her belt. Her silver hair was braided back tight, exposing a face that had been carved by grief into hard angles. She had been a girl in the dance, a dragon rider on a dragon that died too young. Now she looked at Aegon with the blunt assessment of someone who had already buried the world once and did not care to pretend it was gentle. "You're smaller than I remember," she said, and there was no cruelty in it, only truth. Aegon managed. "You're alive." Baela's mouth twitched, almost a smile. "So are the dragons," she replied, nodding toward the red beast. "We seem to be cursed with endurance." Alan shifted, chain reins held tight. "Lady Baela came on the first tide," he said. "She said she would not let Dragonstone become a nest of monsters without Targaryen hands on their necks." Baela's eyes flicked to Alan, amused. "I said I would not let men like you pretend you can leash fire without getting burned." Alan bristled, but the look that passed between them was not hatred. It was recognition, two sharp-edged people circling the same truth from different sides. Aegon stepped closer to the red dragon, careful. The creature's head lifted, nostrils flaring. Heat rolled off it in waves, making the air shimmer. "You've bonded with it?" Aegon asked Baela because the way she stood, too close, too unafraid, looked like familiarity. Baela did not answer at once. Her gaze stayed on the dragon's eyes. "Not yet," she said. "It wants to bite me. That is a kind of interest." Aegon's throat tightened. "You shouldn't." Baela turned her head sharply. "Shouldn't?" she repeated, and the word carried all the contempt she had for softness. You think this ends because you write laws in ink? You think your Sky Edict will stop men from coming? It will only make them come faster, because now there's a rule to break. Aegon flinched, because her bluntness struck too close to Tyland's own cold wisdom. Baela stepped closer to him, lowering her voice. The dance happened because dragons were few, she said. Few enough to be prizes. Few enough for each to be a throne. Now they are many, and they are big enough to make thrones look like toys. If you do not put Targaryen blood on their backs, someone else will. Aegon's eyes stung. And if I do, he whispered. What then? Baela's gaze softened a fraction. Not kind but less sharp. Then you make a cage, she said. Not for dragons. For riders. Alan's chain creaked as the red dragon surged forward, testing it. The iron post shuddered. Alan's hands tightened. It's growing too fast, he muttered. It was half this size yesterday. Baela watched the dragon strain, and something hungry lit in her face. Not hunger for power, but for movement, for purpose, for a life that was not only mourning. Let me try, she said. Alan hesitated. Lady, Baela cut him off with a look, then stepped forward until she was within biting range. The red dragon's head snapped toward her, jaws parting in a hiss that spilled steam. Baela did not flinch. She lifted her hand slowly, palm open, as if greeting a knife. Aegon's chest seized. He remembered touching the red hatchling's jaw in the cavern, the slick heat, the tension. He remembered the black dragon's roar forcing it back. Here, on the terrace, there was no black dragon between them, only Baela's stubborn courage. The red dragon lunged. Baela moved with it, not away. She stepped into its reach and slapped her palm against the side of its jaw with a sharp crack. The dragon froze, stunned more than hurt. Its eyes widened slightly, as if confused that prey had struck back. Baela leaned in, close enough that steam curled around her hair. No, she said, voice low and fierce. Not me. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. Then the red dragon exhaled, a long breath that smelled of sulfur and blood. His jaws closed, his head lowered by a fraction. Baela's hand stayed on its scales, steady. She looked back at Aegon, eyes bright. You see, she said softly. They listen, not because we are kings, because we refuse to be afraid. Aegon swallowed. His fear was a familiar cloak, heavy and warm and suffocating. Baela wore hers like a banner she tore down. Alan let out a slow breath, as if he had been holding it since the dance. If she can, he murmured, then we can fly. And others. Aegon's gaze flicked to the Dragonmont's smoking mouth. He could almost feel the eggs inside, pulsing, waiting. Find them, he said, and his voice held less tremor than before. But find the right ones, not the hungry, not the cruel. Baela's smile, thin and dangerous, returned. Good luck, she said. Hunger and cruelty are the easiest things to find. Above them, on the Dragonmont's shoulder, Aegon's black dragon shifted, watching the red dragon with ember-bright eyes. And the island's wind carried the scent of coming fire out over the sea. They came on a night when the wind screamed like a wounded thing and the rain hit Dragonstone sideways. The castle huddled under the storm, its black stone slick, its corridors smelling of damp wool and smoke. Aegon lay awake anyway. Sleep had become a stranger that visited only when exhaustion won. He listened to the Dragonmont's rumble through the walls like a distant drum. A knock sounded at his door, sharp, urgent. Alan Balerion entered without waiting to be called. His hair was wet, his sea cloak dripping. His face was hard. Someone's in the mountain, he said. Aegon's stomach dropped. How do you know? Alan's jaw clenched. Because my men found the outer post dead with his throat cut, he said. And because the dragons are restless. As if summoned by the word, a deep vibration rolled through the castle. The black dragon's low rumble felt more than heard. The hairs on Aegon's arms rose. Baela appeared behind Alan, already dressed, dagger in hand. She did not ask permission. Move, she said, If they touched the eggs, we're done. They went down into the mountain with only a handful of guards, moving fast, torches hissing in the wet air. The passage was warmer the deeper they went, the storm's cold giving way to the Dragonmont's breath. Aegon's heart hammered so hard he could taste it. The cavern opened red before them, lava glow bleeding through cracks, ash warm underfoot, the eggs scattered like sleeping monsters. And there, among them, 3 hooded figures moved like rats. They carried sacks. One held a small clay pot slung carefully at his side. Another had a torch with oily black smoke trailing from it. The third crouched over an egg, fingers scraping at the shell as if testing for weakness. Aegon's breath caught in his throat. Alan surged forward without hesitation, grabbing the closest intruder by the collar and slamming him into the stone. The man grunted, hood falling back to reveal a thin face slick with sweat. His eyes widened at the sight of Alan's sword. Baela darted to the second like a shadow, her dagger flashing. She pressed the blade under his jaw, lifting his chin. "Drop it," she hissed. The man's hands trembled around the clay pot. He let it fall, and it shattered on stone with a sickening wet crack, thick oil spilling out, reeking of pitch. The third intruder spun, torch raised. His eyes were wild. "Back!" he shouted. "Back or I'll..." He never finished. From the tunnel behind Aegon, ember-bright eyes flared. The black dragon's head slid into view, filling the passage like a wall of living heat. His nostrils flared, tasting oil and fear. The intruder froze, torch wavering. The dragon exhaled. Not fire, just a breath, hot enough that the torch flame flared violently, oil smoke curling thick. The intruder stumbled back, panic overtaking him. He turned to run, slipping in ash. Baela's dagger flicked, slicing his leg. He went down with a cry, hands scrabbling. Aegon stood in the red glow, shaking. He wanted to look away. He forced himself to look at their faces, to see what kind of men would come into a dragon's cradle with oil and sacks. "Who sent you?" Alan demanded, pressing the first man harder against the stone. The man spat, blood flecking his lips. "The gods," he sneered, and Aegon felt a chill. "The 7 sent us. The demons must die." Baela's eyes narrowed. "The faith," she murmured. The second man, beneath her dagger, made a sound like a sob. "We heard," he babbled. "We heard there were eggs. We heard the king hid them, we heard." "From who?" Alan snapped. The man's eyes darted toward Aegon, then to the black dragon, and terror loosened his tongue. "A man in King's Landing," he gasped. "A Septon's man. He said there's coin for proof, coin for shells, coin for..." "Eustace," Aegon whispered, and the name tasted bitter. Baela's mouth twisted. "Or someone using him," she said. "A Septon's mouth is an easy purse to fill." Alan dragged the first intruder closer, forcing him to look at the eggs. "You brought oil," he said softly. "You intended to burn them." The man's grin was fanatical. "Burn the demons," he hissed. "Burn the monsters. Burn the king if he stands with them." Aegon's stomach turned. He felt the eggs behind him like weight. He felt the dragon's heat at his back. He felt, suddenly, the thinness of law here in the mountain's throat. Alan's sword rose. Aegon's voice cracked. "No." Alan froze, jaw tight. Baela's gaze flicked to Aegon, sharp with impatience. Aegon swallowed hard. His hands trembled. "Not here," he said, forcing steadiness. "Not with the eggs watching." Baela snorted softly, but she did not move her dagger. Alan's voice came low. "Then what, your grace?" he asked. "We let them go? We let them tell others the way?" Aegon stared at the intruders' faces. Fear, fanaticism, hunger. Men, small and desperate, yet capable of setting a world on fire if given the chance. "We make an example," Aegon said quietly, and the words made him feel sick. "But we do it above ground, where everyone can see." The first intruder laughed. "A boy king thinks he can frighten the faithful," he spat. The black dragon's rumble deepened, and the sound seemed to make the eggs tremble. Aegon looked up at the dragon's ember-bright eyes. He did not know if it understood the words, but he felt its impatience like heat. He turned back to Alan. "Bind them," he said, "and find who in King's Landing speaks of Dragonstone's eggs. Find who buys faith with coin." Alan nodded, grim. Baela's dagger pressed a little harder, drawing a thin line of blood. "And when we find them," she murmured, "we cut out the tongue that told the story." Aegon closed his eyes for a heartbeat, then opened them again. He could not afford to be gentle. Gentleness was a luxury dragons did not allow. Behind him, the eggs pulsed in the red light, alive and waiting. And above, the storm continued to scream, as if the sky itself disapproved of what men did in the dark. When Aegon returned to King's Landing, the city smelled like fear had learned to sweat. The streets were quieter than they should have been, as if the small folk held their breath waiting for a new catastrophe. Septons preached with sharper voices. Gold cloaks watched corners with hands too close to their spears. Even the rats seemed skittish, darting from shadow to shadow as if they too sensed something enormous overhead. Tyland brought Aegon to the throne room not for splendor but for public meaning. The Iron Throne sat at the far end like a jagged accusation, half its blades blackened still from old fires. Aegon did not sit on it. He stood before it in black, small against the metal teeth, and that smallness made the room feel colder. The court had been summoned. Lords who remained, merchants with nervous smiles, septons with grim mouths. Septon Eustace stood near the front, sweat shining on his brow despite the chill. His eyes flicked everywhere, as if expecting dragons to crawl down the walls. Luther Largent knelt in the center of the hall, bareheaded, his thick neck bowed. He looked uncomfortable in ceremony. He belonged in streets and blood, not in oaths and scrolls. Yet he held still like a man bracing for a blow. Tyland stood beside Aegon, holding a cloak, black as midnight, clasped at the throat with a silver three-headed dragon. It looked too fine for Largent, too sharp-edged for a man who had spent his life breaking crowds. Munkin cleared his throat and read from the scroll, voice trembling slightly. "By the will of Aegon of House Targaryen, third of his name, King of the Undulls, the Royner, and the First Men." Aegon listened to the titles and felt nothing but weight. "There is hereby established the office of Warden of the Skies," Munkin continued, "charged with the keeping of the Sky Edict, the counting of dragons and riders, the granting of leave for flight, and the punishment of any who break the peace of the realm under wing." A murmur ran through the hall. Some faces brightened with relief. Anything that sounded like control. Others hardened with suspicion. Anything that sounded like new tyranny. Septon Eustace's lips moved in silent prayer, but his eyes were fixed on the cloak as if it were a blasphemy-made cloth. Munkin's voice rose. "Luther Largent, captain of the City Watch, do you swear?" Largent's voice cut in, rough as gravel. "I swear," he said, before the words were fully offered, as if impatient to be done with it. Aegon's throat tightened. He stepped forward, taking the cloak from Tyland's hands. The cloth felt heavy, colder than it should have been. He draped it over Largent's shoulders. Largent flinched slightly at the touch, then straightened, a man accepting a burden he did not fully understand. The silver clasp caught candlelight, gleaming like a threat. Aegon's voice came quiet but carried. "You will keep the sky," he said. "You will keep it for the city, for the realm. You will not take bribes. You will not grant leave for pride or spite. You will not let men turn dragons into knives again." Largent lifted his head, meeting Aegon's gaze. His eyes were steady. "And if I have to break men to do it?" he asked bluntly. The question made the court inhale as one. Aegon felt Tyland's presence like a cold hand at his back. He felt Baela's likely mockery across the sea. He felt the black dragon's gaze in memory, ember-bright, patient. "You will do what you must," Aegon said, and the words hurt. "But you will remember who you serve." Largent nodded once, sharp. "I serve the king," he said. And in that simple sentence, Aegon heard both comfort and danger. Men who served kings could do monstrous things with clean consciences. A faint roar echoed through the stone. Not from the city, but from above. A reminder. The court stiffened. Eustace's face went paler. Tyland stepped forward, voice like iron. "The Sky Edict is law," he announced. "Any who shelter eggs, who conspire to steal dragons, who incite riot in the name of faith or greed, will be punished. The sky belongs to the crown." Eustace could not hold himself back. "The sky belongs to the gods," he blurted, voice cracking. All eyes turned to him. Tyland's blind gaze faced forward, unreadable, but his jaw tightened. Aegon's chest constricted. He thought of oil spilled in the Dragonmont cavern, of a fanatic's grin, of the word demons hissed in red light. Aegon spoke before Tyland could. "The gods can keep the heavens," he said quietly. "I will keep the streets from burning." Eustace's mouth opened, then closed. His hands trembled at his sides. Luther Largent rose, cloak settling on his broad shoulders. He looked suddenly larger, not because cloth made him powerful, but because the office did. Because men in the hall now had a name to fear, a person to blame. Tyland leaned toward Aegon, voice low. "Good," he murmured. "Now the hatred has a face that is not yours." Aegon stared at the Iron Throne's blades and wondered how many faces hatred could wear before it found him anyway. Outside, King's Landing held its breath, and far across the sea, Dragonstone's mountain kept incubating a world too large for oaths. It took 3 days for the Faith to choose its battleground. They chose the Dragonpit's corpse. The broken dome rose over the hill like a smashed skull, its ribs of blackened stone jutting into the sky. The place still stank of old blood and burned scale when the wind came right. Men avoided it out of superstition, out of memory. Yet that was precisely why Septon Eustace brought them there, because men who feared a place could be pushed into rage if told the fear was holy. Torches flickered as the crowd gathered, firelight dancing over hollow cheeks. Women with scarves over their hair, men with clubs, boys with stones in their pockets. They filled the broken amphitheater and spilled into the streets, shouting prayers that sounded too much like threats. Eustace stood on a slab of fallen stone, his robes flapping in the wind like a raven's wings. His voice rang, raw. "Here," he cried. "Here is where the demons died. Here is where the people proved the gods are stronger than fire." A roar of approval surged, hope disguised as anger. Luther Largent arrived with his gold cloaks in a line of shields, the silver three-headed dragon clasp on his black cloak catching torchlight. He looked like a man walking into a flood with a board held in front of him. "Back!" he shouted. "By order of the king, back!" Stones flew. One cracked against a shield. Another struck a gold cloak's helm with a clang. A man in the front spat and screamed, "Dragonbane!" as if the insult were a prayer. Others took it up, chanting, "Dragonbane! Dragonbane!" Aegon watched from a distance, hidden behind a broken arch with a handful of guards. Tyland had begged him not to come. "A king does not stand where stones fly," Tyland had said. "You will become a martyr or a corpse." Aegon had come anyway, because he could not keep sending other men to bleed for his choices without ever looking at the blood. Beside him, in a covered litter with curtains half drawn, Alicent Hightower watched too. She had insisted on being brought, her face pale beneath her veil, her eyes fixed on the Dragonpit's ruin with the intensity of a woman staring into a grave she had dug herself. "They love this place," she whispered, voice hollow. "They love the memory of killing what they feared. It makes them feel clean." Aegon's throat tightened. "They killed dying dragons," he murmured. Alicent's gaze flicked to him. "Dying or not," she said softly, "they believed they could. Belief is the most dangerous weapon the small have." The chanting grew louder. Luther Largent's line held, shields braced. He shoved back with controlled force, trying to break the crowd before it became a tide. But hunger and faith made people heavy. They pressed in, torches raising, faces contorted. Eustace raised both hands. "Do you hear the sky?" he cried. Do you feel the demons stirring? The king keeps eggs. He keeps beasts that will burn your children. Will you wait until your homes are ash? No! The crowd screamed. Luther Largent's voice bellowed. Enough! A man lunged, club swinging. A gold cloak's shield caught it. Another man tried to slip past the line, and a spear but slammed him in the chest, knocking him down. The crowd surged. Aegon's stomach dropped as the line began to bend. Men screamed. Torches fell, fire licking at debris. The broken dragon pit seemed to breathe flame again. Then the world darkened. A shadow passed over the ruin, vast, slow, suffocating. Faces turned upward in unison, eyes wide. Aegon felt his heart seize. Not fear of the dragon, fear of what the crowd would do when reminded of its smallness. The dragon did not descend. It did not breathe fire. It simply circled once above the shattered dome, and its roar rolled down like thunder. The crowd's chant shattered into screams. Some fled. Others dropped to their knees, sobbing prayers. A few, fewer than Aegon expected, raised their clubs and stones toward the sky, shaking with rage, as if daring the beast to come lower. Eustace stood rigid, arms still raised, his face slick with sweat. "See!" he screamed, voice cracking. "See how it mocks you. Will you kneel to demons?" For a heartbeat, it looked as though his fervor might hold the crowd in place. Then Luther Largent stepped forward and struck Eustace across the mouth with the flat of his gauntlet. The sound echoed, flesh on metal, a dull crack. Eustace staggered, blood spraying. The crowd froze, shocked into silence. Luther's voice was low, brutal. "You will not call fire down on this city again," he growled. "Not with your tongue." Eustace's eyes went wide with disbelief, then with a kind of ecstatic fury. "Martyr," he whispered through blood. Aegon's chest tightened. He knew what Tyland had wanted, to cut the head off the riot. Luther had done it in the only language riots understood. The crowd began to pull back, not because their faith had died, but because fear had found a new face, one wearing the king's cloak. Alicent watched, veil trembling. "You see?" she whispered. "Violence answers violence. It always does." Aegon stared at the broken dragon pit, at the torches flickering like angry stars, and he felt nausea rise. He had not stopped the riot. He had only pushed it into a corner where it would fester. Above, the dragon's shadow slid away, leaving the ruin exposed under the gray sky. The crowd dispersed in snarling knots, muttering oaths of vengeance and prayers of deliverance. And Aegon, hidden in the broken arch, understood with a clarity that hurt. He could keep the streets from burning for a day. He could not keep hatred from learning. The Dornish came not with armies, but with smiles sharp enough to cut. Ser Corin Sand introduced himself with a bow that was just shallow enough to be an insult if one wanted it to be. He wore sun-colored robes and a bronze medallion shaped like a blazing sun. His skin was dark from desert light, his eyes bright with amusement. He carried no sword at his hip, yet Aegon felt more threatened by him than by any club-wielding fanatic in Flea Bottom. "Your Grace," Ser Corin said, voice smooth. "Princess Aleandra Martell sends her regards, and her congratulations." Aegon's throat tightened. "Congratulations."
"Se curens smila widanat."
"On surviving," he said, as if survival were a tournament prize. Tyland Lannister's jaw flexed. "State your business," he said bluntly. Ser Corin spread his hands. "Peace," he said, "or rather, terms for peace. Dragons breathe, and when dragons breathe, wise men step back and ask where the wind will blow." Munkin unrolled a map across the table, weights holding the corners. Dornish borders were marked in red ink, neat and unforgiving. Rivers and mountain passes looked suddenly like lines a blade might follow. Ser Corin leaned in without being invited. "Dorne has no desire to be ash," he said lightly. "But Dorne also has no desire to be reminded. By shadow, by roar, by accident." Aegon felt Tyland's gaze on him, invisible but heavy. "You want a treaty," Aegon said. Ser Corin's smile did not fade. "We want a promise," he corrected, "that no dragon will cross Dornish skies without Dornish leave." Tyland's golden hand clicked on the table. "You ask a king to surrender the sky." Ser Corin's eyes gleamed. "We ask a king to admit he cannot hold it everywhere," he said softly. "Your Sky Edict is clever, my lord. Tells your people the sky is yours. But the sky is large, and your people are many, and your dragons." He tilted his head, feigning curiosity. "Your dragons are not the sick little things the world remembers, are they?" Aegon's stomach twisted. Words traveled faster than ships. Even Dorne, behind its mountains and deserts, already knew. "You have spies," Tyland said coldly.
Ser Corin shrugged.
"We have ears," he replied, "and the sea carries sound." Aegon looked at the map and imagined dragons flying over the red mountains, casting shadows on sand, turning oases to steam. He remembered the dance's lesson. Men could not always kill dragons, but men could kill the hands that guided them. "What do you offer?" Aegon asked. Ser Corin's smile turned almost kind. "Honesty," he said. "Dorne will not rise in holy fury like your faith. We will not pretend prayers can pierce scale. We will do what Dorne has always done. We will endure. But endurance is easier when one knows where the fire will not fall." Tyland's voice was a razor. "And if we refuse?" Ser Corin's gaze slid to Tyland's golden hand, as if appreciating the craftsmanship. "Then Dorne prepares," he said simply. "We dig deeper wells. We build thicker stone. We train men to look up and not freeze. And when your dragons come, we do not fight them in open field like fools. We fight you where you are human." Silence thickened. Luther Largent shifted near the wall, hand on spear haft. Munkin's quill hovered over parchment, reluctant to write threats into record. Aegon's chest tightened. He felt faintly admiration for Ser Corin's honesty. The Dornish did not plead. They did not bluster. They simply stated what they would do. "You speak as if war is inevitable," Aegon said quietly.
Se Kurens smila suftanat.
"War is always possible," he replied. "Peace is the thing that must be built, your grace. Built with stone and ink and, sometimes, restraint." Restraint. The word felt like a hand closing around Aegon's throat. Tyland leaned forward slightly. "You offer peace in exchange for a no-fly sky," he said. "And what does Dorne give in return?" Ser Corin's eyes brightened. "Trade," he said. "Grain in drought years. Spices and silk through our ports without harassment. Information, because Dorne hears things the rest of the realm pretends not to." He paused, then added softly, "And a promise that if the faith tries to spread its fire into our deserts, we stamp it out." Aegon's stomach tightened at the thought of the faith's reach extending beyond the crownlands. Allies were scarce now. Even uneasy ones mattered. He looked at Tyland. Though Tyland's eyes were blind, Aegon felt the man's calculation like a blade near skin. "Draft terms," Aegon said. Ser Corin bowed again, a fraction deeper now. "Wise," he murmured. Tyland's golden hand clicked once. Sharp. "Careful," he warned Aegon softly when Ser Corin turned away. "Every promise you make to keep your dragons leashed will be used later to claim you have broken faith when you inevitably fail." Aegon's throat tightened. "And if I make no promises," he whispered, "they will prepare to kill me." Tyland's jaw flexed. "Yes," he said, "that is the difference between a king and a boy. A boy hopes. A king chooses which knife he would rather face." Aegon watched Ser Corin Sand's sun medallion glint in candlelight as he left, and he felt the realm's borders shift in his mind. Not on maps, but in fear. Dragons might own the sky, but the ground still belonged to men who knew how to endure fire. In the Stepstones, men built their prayers out of wood and iron. The Triarchy had always been a nest of merchants and grudges, city-states bound together by the thin rope of shared profit. Dragons had cut that rope before, once, and men who remembered did not forget easily. When word reached them that dragons breathed again, bigger, hotter, hungrier, their response was not sermon but manufacture. They raised ballistae on cliff forts, the great wooden arms creaking like old bones. They forged bolts with barbed heads meant to tear flesh, not pierce scale. They trained crews to aim not for wings but for saddles that did not exist yet, for the place where a rider's body would be, because a dragon without a rider was weather terrible but aimless. Alan Balerion watched from the deck of a warship rolling in rough seas, rain stinging his face. His men hauled ropes and cursed the wind. The ship's prow cut through waves like a blade, salt spray flying. He had not come with dragons. He had come with ships because ships were the language he understood, and because the sea was still one place where wings did not automatically win. On the cliff, a triarchy commander, Lyseni by his pale hair and bright armor, stood pointing at a ballista being cranked back. His voice carried even over rain, sharp with command. Men pulled ropes, muscles straining. The bolt slid into place, heavy as a spear tree. Above, far above, a shadow passed over the waves. Not Aegon's black dragon. Alan knew its bulk now, knew the way its shadow swallowed light. This shadow was smaller, quicker. One of the new hatchlings, perhaps, flown too close to the Stepstones by instinct or curiosity. The triarchy commander shouted. The ballista released with a howl. The bolt flew, cutting through rain like a thrown curse. It did not strike the dragon's body. It struck the air beside it with a violent hiss, passing close enough that the dragon jerked mid-flight. A roar echoed, distant but furious. The dragon climbed higher, wings beating hard, leaving the bolt behind like a misjudgment. The Lyseni commander spat, furious. Again, he shouted. Alan's jaw tightened. He watched crews reset the machine, watched men move with the grim determination of those who knew they were building the only hope they had. Alan turned to his first mate. "They're learning," he said. The first mate nodded. "So should we," he replied. Alan looked out at the cliff forts and felt a familiar coldness settle in his gut. Dragons changed war, but men changed too. Men always found ways to kill what frightened them if given enough time and enough bodies to throw at the problem. He thought of Baela Targaryen's words, "Make a cage for riders." He thought of Aegon's pale face, the boy king trying to write law around fire. He watched the triarchy crews haul another bolt, load it with practiced hands. The machine's wood was wet and dark, the iron gleaming with rain. Alan's mouth tightened. "Tell the king," he said quietly, and the order tasted bitter. "Tell him that the world will not just kneel under wings. It will reach up." The first mate hesitated. "He already knows," he said. Alan stared at the distant dragon shadow shrinking into cloud. "No," he murmured. "He knows fear. He does not yet know inevitability." Lightning split the sky, white and harsh, illuminating the ballista for a heartbeat like a skeleton of a new god. The triarchy commander shouted again, and the bolt flew again, a second prayer hurled upward. Men were learning to aim at the sky, and Alan Balerion felt for the first time that the ocean might not be enough to keep them safe from what was coming. The cannibal returned like a nightmare walking out of old stories. They had whispered of it during the dance, an ancient wild dragon that had lived on Dragonstone longer than the castle, longer perhaps than the Targaryens themselves. It ate hatchlings, they said. It ate eggs. It ate anything foolish enough to come too near its lair. Men spoke of it like a superstition meant to frighten children into obedience. Then, under a blood-red sunset, it landed on the Dragonmont's ridge, and superstition became flesh. Aegon saw it from a terrace, and for a moment his mind refused the scale. The cannibal's wingspan made his black dragons look almost modest. Its hide was black, but not the clean charcoal of Aegon's dragon. This black was scarred, patched, rough with old burns and old battles. Its horns twisted like dead branches. Its teeth were long and uneven, some cracked, and when it opened its mouth, a string of half-digested flesh hung from one side like a wet banner. Baela Targaryen stood beside Aegon, her face gone pale for the first time since she'd arrived. Her dagger hand tightened at her belt as if metal could comfort her. "That," she whispered, voice tight, "is not a hatchling." Aegon could not speak. The cannibal's eyes, pale, almost milky, scanned the slopes below with the lazy certainty of a predator returning to a hunting ground it had never stopped owning. Below, Aegon's black dragon roared, defiance shaking the air. It spread its wings and climbed partway up the slope, neck arched, ember-bright eyes fixed on the intruder. For a heartbeat, Aegon hoped, absurdly, that his dragon would chase it away, that dominance could be enforced like law. The cannibal turned its head slowly. It looked down at the black dragon as if noticing a barking dog. Then it roared. The sound was deeper than thunder, older, a noise that seemed to come from the mountain itself. Ash shook loose from cliffs. Men on the castle walls dropped to their knees, hands over ears. The terrace stones vibrated under Aegon's boots. Aegon's black dragon hesitated. Aegon felt his stomach drop. He felt sharply the difference between a dragon that had chosen him and a dragon that had never chosen anyone. The cannibal lifted its wings and dropped from the ridge in a short, brutal glide, landing lower on the slope with a crash of stone. His claws tore black rock. Its head swung toward a smaller movement near the mountain's mouth. One of the new hatchlings had wandered out, curious, its scales pale green, its body already large enough to crush a man. It froze when the cannibal's shadow fell over it, then tried to back away, hissing. The cannibal did not hesitate. It lunged and closed its jaws around the hatchling's neck with a sickening crunch. The hatchling screamed and thrashed, wings flailing uselessly. The cannibal shook it once, hard, snapping bone. Blood sprayed dark against black stone. Aegon's vision blurred. He staggered forward, hand rising as if he could stop it with a gesture. "No," he whispered. Baela grabbed his sleeve, yanking him back. "You can't," she hissed. "You can't." The cannibal lifted its head, the hatchling dangling limp from its mouth, then tore a chunk free and swallowed. The ease of it, the casual cruelty, made Aegon's throat close. His black dragon roared again, furious now, and surged forward. It leapt up the slope, wings beating, claws scraping for purchase. It lunged at the cannibal's flank, teeth snapping. The cannibal turned, slower only because it was so large. Its tail swung like a battering ram. It struck Aegon's dragon mid-body with a crack that sounded like a tree splitting. The black dragon was flung sideways, smashing into rock, wings scraping, claws scrambling. Aegon's chest seized. His dragon rose again, shaking off dust, eyes burning. It roared, rage, pain, refusal. The cannibal watched, chewing. Then, as if bored, it spread its wings and launched back toward the ridge, carrying the hatchling's corpse like a prize. It climbed on heavy wing beats, each one sending gusts of ash down the slope. It did not flee. It simply returned to its higher ground, to its throne of rock. Aegon stood frozen, breath ragged, staring at the black dragon below as it limped, one wing held awkwardly. The creature's roar had softened to a low rumble, wounded pride and pain. Baela's face was tight. "You see," she whispered, "there are dragons that do not belong to you. There are dragons that do not belong to any man." Aegon's hands shook. He felt suddenly as if his Sky Edict were a child's scribble. He could not legislate the cannibal. He could not appoint a warden over something that ate wardens. Below, men screamed orders, handlers scattering, trying to drive hatchlings back into stone corridors. The red dragon strained against its chains, sensing blood, eyes bright. The mountain seemed to rumble with hunger.
Aegon sdalovet bile.
"It will come again," he whispered. Baela's gaze stayed on the ridge, where the cannibal's silhouette loomed against the bleeding sky. "Yes," she said softly. "And next time, it won't just eat a hatchling." Aegon's black dragon limped toward the terrace, slow and furious, eyes flicking up to Aegon as if apologizing for being smaller than legend. Aegon felt tears sting. He did not wipe them away. The cannibal's roar rolled across Dragonstone one more time, as if claiming the island in sound. And Aegon understood a new truth. The worst fire was not the fire men used. It was the fire that did not care about men at all. After the cannibal's return, fear stopped being a tool and became a weather that never cleared. Men on Dragonstone glanced at the Dragonmont as if expecting it to sprout teeth. Handlers slept in shifts, listening for strange wing beats. Even the dragons seemed restless. Hatchlings pacing, tails lashing, eyes tracking the ridge where the cannibal had landed. The island had become a nest not only of fire, but of predation. Aegon did what he had learned to do when fear threatened to swallow him. He built something. He gathered them in Dragonstone's great hall, where the stone walls held the mountain's warmth and the air smelled faintly of smoke. The hall was not grand like the Red Keep. It was older, harsher, as if it had been carved from dragon bone. Alan stood with a book of oaths, freshly written, ink still sharp. Luther Largent had crossed the sea at Aegon's summons, his black cloak heavy on his shoulders, the silver clasp gleaming. He looked uncomfortable on the island, as if the sea itself might betray him. Yet he stood because his office did not end at the city walls anymore. Baela stood in a line with others Aegon had chosen. Not many. Aegon had refused Tyland's urge to pick 20 at once. Too many, he had said. Too many chances for betrayal. Tyland had been displeased, but even Tyland had not argued after the cannibal's shadow. There were 3 others besides Baela. Men and women with Targaryen blood thin as watered wine, and one bastard from Dragonstone named Joran Stone, whose eyes were too steady for a boy and whose hands bore old burns. He had worked near dragon keepers as a child, had watched dragons without flinching. When Aegon asked why he wanted to ride, Joran had said simply, "Because if I don't, someone crueler will." Aegon had hated how sensible that was. Behind them, through open doors, 3 dragons perched in the courtyard. Huge bodies crouched on stone, wings folded like tents. Handlers stood at their feet, small as ants. The dragon's eyes watched the hall, unblinking, as if curious what vows humans would make to pretend they mattered. Alan opened the book. His voice came firm, carrying. "You will swear," he said, "to ride only by the king's leave. You will swear to keep the peace of the realm under wing. You will swear to answer the Warden of the Skies and the King's Council in matters of flight." Baela's mouth twitched. "Swear," she echoed quietly. Luther Largent's gaze slid over the line, measuring. He looked at Joran Stone longer than the others. Aegon stepped forward. The hall went quiet. "I will not lie to you," Aegon said, voice steady despite the tightness in his throat. "These vows will not make dragons gentle. They will not make men wise. They will not stop the cannibal from eating what it wants." A flicker moved among the line, fear, acknowledgement. "But they will make you accountable," Aegon continued. "And that is all we can build that is stronger than hunger. If you break this oath, you will not simply betray me. You will betray every child sleeping under a roof that could become ash." His voice cracked slightly on the word child, and he hated himself for it, but he did not stop. Baela's eyes stayed fixed on him, sharp and unreadable. Joran Stone swallowed hard. Alan lifted the book. "Repeat," he commanded. They swore. Each voice rose, some shaking, some fierce. Baela's vow came out like a blade being drawn. Clean, deliberate. Joran Stone's came out quieter, but no less firm. The others spoke as if afraid the words themselves might summon fire. When the last oath was spoken, Aegon stepped close enough to see their faces clearly. He looked at Baela first. "You will lead them," he said quietly. Baela's brows lifted slightly. "Lead?" she repeated. "You have ridden before," Aegon said. "You know what hunger feels like under you. You know how quickly men become monsters when they sit above others." Baela's mouth tightened. "So you put a monster in charge of monsters?" she murmured. Aegon met her gaze, unblinking. "I put someone who knows she could become one," he said. "That is the closest thing I have to trust." For a heartbeat, Baela looked almost moved. Then the mask snapped back into place. "Fine," she said. "I'll keep them from being stupid. If they insist, I'll break their legs." Luther Largent let out a low huff that might have been laughter. Aegon turned to Joran Stone. "You will ride," Aegon said. But you will remember you are not chosen because you deserve glory. You are chosen because the realm needs less cruelty in the sky. Jorah nodded once, eyes bright. I know, he whispered. Outside, one of the dragons shifted, claws scraping stone. A low rumble rolled through the courtyard. Aegon's stomach tightened. The dragons did not care about oaths. Yet the riders did, and that had to be enough. Alan closed the book with a soft thud. Then it is done, he said.
No bells rang.
No cheers rose, only the low sound of dragons breathing and the distant murmur of the sea. Aegon looked from face to face and felt the thin, fragile thing he had built. An order, a cage, a promise. He did not know whether it would hold, but he knew the alternative was a sky owned by whoever reached it first. The storm that had haunted Aegon's horizon finally arrived with teeth. Waves slammed the rocks hard enough to shake spray onto the castle walls. Wind tore at banners and made torches hiss and die. The sea looked like a living thing trying to climb onto land. Aegon stood in the harbor yard with Baela at his side, Luther Largent behind. Alan watching the black water with the wary gaze of a man who trusted ships only because he understood how they failed. Above them, on a high outcrop, the black dragon perched, wings hunched, eyes ember-bright in the lightning's brief flashes. Alan had woken Aegon before dawn with a voice tight as rope. A ship, he had said, approaching without signal. Torn sails. It flew no banner until the last moment. Pirates? Baela had asked, dagger already in hand. Maybe, Alan had replied, or something worse. Now the ship fought its way into the harbor like a wounded animal crawling toward shelter. Its mast was scarred, its sail shredded. Men on deck clung to rigging, faces pale, shouting into the wind. At its prow, a small banner finally snapped free, 3 heads, black on red, soaked and heavy. Aegon's breath caught. The ship grounded with a crunch, ropes thrown, sailors scrambling like men escaping a sinking coffin. Guards moved in, spears raised. Luther Largent's line formed without needing orders. Alan stepped forward, voice sharp. State your business. A man in a drenched cloak stumbled down the gangplank, holding up both hands. His face was gaunt, his eyes wild. We come under ransom, he shouted over the wind. We come under the king's blood. Aegon's stomach twisted. The man gestured back toward the deck, and another figure appeared between sailors, a boy. He was thin from hunger, pale from months at sea, but his hair was silver despite the salt crusting it. His eyes were the color of lilac bruises. He stepped onto the gangplank slowly, as if afraid the wood would vanish beneath him. Lightning flashed. For an instant, the boy's face was lit stark, and Aegon felt his world tilt. Viserys Targaryen, his brother, stolen in war, sold across the sea, rumored dead, rumored alive. Viserys stepped onto the dock, boots slipping slightly on wet wood. He looked at Aegon as if trying to confirm that the figure in black was real. Aegon could not move. His chest felt too tight for breath. Viserys' lips parted. His voice came out hoarse, broken by salt and fear. Aegon. The name hit Aegon like a fist. His knees went weak. He took one step forward, then another, and realized his hands were shaking. Baela's hand shot out, gripping his sleeve. Her eyes were narrowed, wary. Careful, she hissed. This could be a trap. Luther Largent finished, voice low. Aegon stared at Viserys' face. Too thin, too tired, but unmistakably his blood. The boy's eyes glistened. Viserys took a step closer, then stopped when the black dragon above them rumbled. Fear flickered across Viserys' face, fast and familiar. Aegon felt a strange, sharp ache. Sorrow that even this reunion had to happen under a dragon's shadow. Alan Valerion's voice cut through the moment. Who held him? He demanded of the drenched man. Who sends him? The man swallowed. Lys, he shouted. A merchant prince. He wanted coin. He wanted names, Alan snapped. The man flinched. Rogaire, he gasped. House Rogaire, he said, He said dragons live again and he wanted favor. Baela's eyes narrowed. And he sends a boy as gift, she murmured. A clever leash. Aegon could barely hear them. His gaze stayed on Viserys, who stood trembling in the rain, soaked through, stubbornly upright. Viserys swallowed hard. They told me you were dead, he said, voice cracking. They told me dragons were dead. They told me Westeros was ash. Aegon's throat closed. He found his voice by force. I'm here, he whispered. Then louder, you're here. Viserys' face crumpled. He took another step forward, and Aegon stepped too, ignoring Baela's grip. Aegon reached Viserys and stopped, staring at him as if afraid to touch him and have him vanish. Viserys' hands hovered uncertainly, then grasped Aegon's cloak with desperate strength. Aegon's arms rose, stiff at first, then tight, pulling Viserys close. Viserys shook against him, a silent sob swallowed by wind. Above them, the black dragon rumbled again, lower this time. Baela watched, dagger still in hand, eyes hard. Now we have another Targaryen, she murmured, and the world will decide what that means. Alan's gaze stayed on the ship, calculating. And Lys has decided to place a hook in our mouth, he said quietly. Lightning flashed again, illuminating the harbor in stark white. The drenched sailors, the tense spears, the silver hair of two brothers clinging together in the storm's teeth. Aegon held Viserys and felt warmth under all the cold, felt something human and fragile still alive in him. Then Viserys pulled back slightly, eyes wide and earnest, and whispered, Aegon, what is that? His gaze flicked up again to the dragon above, to the massive shadow that owned the storm. Aegon swallowed, throat raw. He looked into his brother's eyes and understood that the world Viserys had imagined returning to no longer existed. The sky, Aegon said softly, belongs to fire again. And as the storm raged around Dragonstone, with the cannibal somewhere on the ridge and eggs pulsing in the mountain's belly, Aegon realized he had been given the one thing he had wanted most, and the one complication that could undo everything he had built. Because dragons did not only choose kings, they also chose heirs. Viserys Targaryen slept like a boy who expected the sea to swallow him. Aegon had put him in a chamber whose windows faced the Dragonmont, not because it was kind, but because there was nowhere on Dragonstone where the mountain's presence could be ignored. The room was warm from stone that held the island's heat. The bed was piled with blankets. A brazier burned low in the corner. Still Viserys jerked at every gust of wind, fingers tightening on the coverlet as though it were a rope. Baela Targaryen watched him from the doorway with an expression carved from suspicion. She had not removed her dagger. She did not remove it even when Aegon sat at the bedside and tried to speak softly, as if the tone could remake the world into something gentle. He is who he seems, Aegon said at last, because silence had become unbearable. Baela's eyes flicked to his. Is he? She asked. Or is he what Lys wants you to see? Aegon's jaw tightened. He stared at his brother's silver hair spread on the pillow, at the salt crust still clinging to it. He said my name, Aegon murmured. He knew my face. Men can learn faces, Baela replied, voice low. Men can learn names. Men can learn anything if there is coin in it. Aegon's fingers curled into the bedpost. Rage rose hot in his chest, not at Baela, but at the idea that even this one thing he had wanted back, could be a tool in someone else's hand. He swallowed it down. Rage did not help. Rage only made dragons. Alan Balerion appeared behind Baela, wet cloak swapped for dry, but his eyes still carried storm. The sailors are in the lower hall, he said. The man who brought him down the gangplank is talking. Not because he's brave, because he's terrified. Aegon stood. The black dragon's rumble rolled through the castle somewhere above, a slow vibration in the bones. Viserys flinched in his sleep, then sank again into exhaustion. They left Baela at the door. She stayed there as if she were a lock. Down in the lower hall, the air smelled of wet wool and fear. The sailors from the ship stood in a line, heads bowed, hands bound. The man who had spoken of House Roger shook so hard his teeth clicked. Alan loomed over him like a mast over a skiff. Aegon approached and felt eyes lift toward him. Pleading, suspicious, calculating. Even frightened men watched a king for weakness. "Tell it again," Aegon said. The man swallowed. "They held him in lists," he said, voice cracking. "A merchant prince. Lyseni, rich as a god. Roger. He said the prince was not to be harmed. Not unless he tried to flee. He said, 7 save me." He said the boy was an investment. Baela would have spat at the word investment. Aegon's throat tightened. "What did he want?" Aegon asked. The man licked cracked lips. "Favor," he whispered. "A place at court. Marriage ties. Trade. He said the king would need coin and grain and ships. He said the dragons. The dragons would eat kingdoms, and kingdoms would pay for someone to hold their leash." Aegon felt a coldness settle in his gut. He glanced at Alan. Alan's face did not change, but his jaw tightened. "And if you did not bring my brother?" Aegon asked. The man's eyes darted. "Then he would have sent someone else," he said. "Or he would have sold him to the Triarchy. Or to anyone who would pay." Alan's voice came flat. "How did you reach Dragonstone without being taken by Stepstones patrols?" The man's shoulders hunched. "We paid," he whispered. "We paid a fort captain to look away. The sea is full of hands willing to close for silver." Aegon's fingers curled. He could see Tyland's face in his mind, the cold logic, the way Tyland would say, "There is always a price." Aegon hated how true it was. "Is there a letter?" Aegon asked. The man nodded frantically. "Yes, your grace. Sealed. In the captain's chest." He said it was to be given only to you, and only if the boy stepped on your dock. Aegon inhaled slowly. "Bring it," he said. When the letter was placed in his hands, wax seal unbroken, paper fine as skin, Aegon did not open it at once. He stared at it as if it might hiss. Above, the dragon rumbled again, impatient, a reminder that life's biggest forces did not wait for men to decide. Aegon held the letter and understood. Viserys' return was real, and it was also a hook. Those two truths did not cancel each other. They merely tightened into a knot the realm would choke on. He tucked the letter into his cloak and looked at Alan. "No one leaves this island," he said quietly. "Not until we know who is reaching for our sky." Alan nodded once, grim. "And the boy?" he asked. Aegon's breath caught at the word boy. "He stays with me," Aegon said, and the vow felt like iron. "If Lys wants a leash, they will find my hands harder to close than they expect." He turned back toward the stairs, toward the chamber where his brother slept and Baela stood guard, and he felt the Dragonmont's heat under the stone like a heartbeat answering his own. Outside, the sea battered Dragonstone's teeth. Inside, Aegon carried a sealed letter that smelled faintly of foreign perfume, and he knew the storm had only begun. Viserys Targaryen woke at dusk, blinking as though the light itself were a trick. Aegon sat near the brazier with the sealed Lyseni letter on his knee, still unbroken. He had read it a dozen times in his mind without opening it. Imagined threats, promises, honeyed words that hid a knife. Yet the letter was not what held his attention. It was the sound of his brother breathing in the bed, the simple proof that Viserys lived. Viserys turned his head, eyes unfocused at first, then sharpening when they found Aegon. He stared as if afraid Aegon was a dream that would dissolve if he blinked. "You're still here," Viserys whispered. "I'm still here," Aegon answered, and the words tasted strange, like a foreign prayer. Viserys swallowed. His hands emerged from the blankets, thin wrists with faint marks where old bindings had been, skin rubbed raw in places. He looked down at them as if they belonged to someone else. "Do you want water?" Aegon asked. Viserys shook his head. "No," he whispered. Then, after a beat, "Yes." Aegon poured from a pitcher and held the cup. Viserys' fingers shook as he took it. He drank too quickly and coughed, water spilling down his chin. He wiped it with the back of his hand in a gesture that was childlike and heartbreakingly familiar. Aegon's throat tightened. "Tell me," he said softly. "Tell me what happened." Viserys' eyes flicked toward the window, where the Dragonmont loomed like a dark god. Smoke curled faintly from its mouth. Viserys flinched at the sight, then forced himself to look back at Aegon. "They took me at the gullet," he said, voice hoarse. You remember the screaming. You remember the ships burning." Aegon's stomach clenched. He remembered too much. He nodded once. "They said I was dead," Viserys continued. "They told you I drowned, but I didn't drown. His throat worked, words snagging. "I was pulled from the water by a sailor who thought my hair was worth coin. He sold me before my feet were even dry." Aegon's hands curled into fists. The brazier crackled, a small, harmless fire. He wanted to put his fist through stone. Viserys' gaze went distant. "Lys is beautiful," he whispered, and the words sounded like a confession. "White towers, purple sails, perfume everywhere, even in the docks. They fed me sweet things and told me I should be grateful. They dressed me in silk and made me bow and smile. They said I was a prince and that princes should not weep." His voice cracked on the last word. Aegon's chest tightened. "House Rogaire," Viserys said, and there was bitterness now, anger that had found language. "They are bankers and merchants. They lend coin to kings and call it mercy. They kept me in a tower that looked over the sea. The door was locked, but the window was wide. I watched ships come and go and learned how far the world could stretch when you were trapped in one room." Aegon glanced down at the sealed letter on his knee. The wax seemed darker now. "What did they want?" Aegon asked. Viserys gave a small laugh that had no joy in it. "They wanted the world," he said, "but they spoke as if they wanted only peace. They said Westeros was broken and needed help. They said you would need coin to rebuild your city. They said dragons are expensive and that only a fool tries to feed a monster with empty hands." Aegon's jaw tightened. "And you?" Viserys' eyes sharpened. "They wanted me to be their key," he said softly. "They said if I returned to you alive, you would owe them. They said blood debt is stronger than any contract." Aegon's throat tightened. "Did they hurt you?" he asked. The question dragged from him like a thorn. Viserys' gaze slid away. "Not with whips," he whispered. "Not often. They hurt me with waiting, with the promise that if I obeyed, I could go home, with the threat that if I did not, I would be sold again. They taught me Lyseni words and made me practice court manners. They said I must be presentable if I were to be a gift." Aegon flinched at the word gift. Viserys' hands trembled. "I heard them talk," he said. "They didn't know I understood all of it at first. They talked about dragons, about the old days, about Valyria. They said the world had been safe because dragons had shrunk and died. And now," he swallowed hard, "now they say dragons are born bigger than the Black Dread. They say that if you have one of those beasts and a man on its back, you don't need a fleet. You don't need an army. You need only a place to point." Aegon's mind flashed to the Stepstones, to ballista bolts cutting rain, to men learning to aim at the sky. "They spoke of war," Viserys continued. "Not open war, trade war, debt war. They said the Triarchy is building machines to shoot dragons. They said Dornishmen are digging deeper wells. They said the faith in your city is screaming at the sky. They said everyone is afraid and fear makes men spend coin." Aegon's fingers tightened on the letter until the wax seal creaked. Viserys looked at him, eyes shining. "I tried to keep hope," he whispered. "I told myself I would see you again, but some nights I thought you were dead. Some nights I thought I would return and find no one left." Aegon swallowed, throat raw. "I'm here," he repeated, because it was all he had. Viserys' lips trembled. Do you still hate dragons?" he asked suddenly. The question struck Aegon like a blow. He stared at his brother. "Why would you ask that?" Viserys nodded toward the window, toward the mountain. "Because they told me," he whispered, "that you were called Dragonbane. that you hated them, that you would kill them all if you could. Aegon felt a bitter laugh rise and choke in his throat. They called me that because people need a story, he said quietly. I don't hate dragons. I fear them. Viserys' gaze dropped to the letter. And now? He asked. Aegon looked at the sealed wax, at the foreign mark stamped into it like a thumbprint on flesh. Now, he said softly, the world wants to use us again. Viserys' eyes lifted, steady for the first time since waking. Then use them first, he whispered. Aegon stared at him. What? Viserys' hands curled in the blankets, knuckles white. They taught me to smile, he said. They taught me to bow. They think I am soft because I am alive. But I am not soft, Aegon. I am just tired. Aegon's chest tightened. He saw the boy his brother had been, and the sharp edge he had become. Viserys nodded toward the letter. Open it, he said quietly. Let's see what kind of chain they've brought you. Aegon held his brother's gaze for a long moment, then placed the letter on the table. His fingers slid under the seal, and with a careful, almost surgical motion, he broke it. The wax snapped, and the sound felt louder than the storm outside. Aegon unfolded the parchment and began to read, while Viserys watched his face as if reading the future in it. The Lyseni letter was written in ink that smelled faintly of spices, each line curved with careful elegance as though words were jewels to be displayed. Aegon read it once, then again because his mind refused to accept how openly it tried to wrap him in silk. It spoke of sympathy for the realm's suffering, praised Aegon's endurance. It called Viserys' return a miracle the gods must have willed. It offered coin, ships, grain, and learned men who could assist in rebuilding. It offered friendship, and beneath every offer, the quiet assumption that friendship could be priced. At the bottom, in a flourish, was the name, Lysandro Rogaire. Aegon's fingers tightened until the parchment crumpled slightly. Viserys watched, face pale but intent. They want you to owe them, Viserys said, voice flat. Aegon nodded once, throat tight. They think I will be grateful, he murmured. They think gratitude is a chain. Viserys' mouth twisted. Gratitude is a leash, he corrected. They want to hold it. Aegon stared into the brazier's coals, seeing not warmth but teeth. He could hear Tywin Lannister's voice in his head. Coin is always a knife. He could hear Baela's voice. Men like that do not give without taking. He could hear Alan's voice. The sea is full of hands willing to close for silver. A raven arrived before Aegon could decide what to do with the letter. It came at midnight, wings slick with mist, its claws gripping the perch like a man clinging to a ledge. The maester who brought it to Aegon looked frightened, as if ravens now carried more than ink. Aegon broke the seal and read by lantern light while Viserys sat in the bed, watching. Tywin's hand had written it, tight, efficient script. The boy is returned. Good. Do not trust the manner of his return. Keep him close. Keep him quiet. The city is restless. Eustace bleeds and has become a banner. His followers gather in the alleys and call for holy cleansing. Largent holds them for now, but hunger makes men brave. The Sky Edict must be enforced without hesitation. Mercy will be interpreted as weakness. Bring Viserys to King's Landing when it can be done without spectacle. His presence can steady the court and distract the mob. Can also invite claimants. Guard him accordingly. I am arranging watchers in the docks. There are whispers of foreign ships seeking dragon proof for coin. If Dragonstone's eggs become a market, we drown in fire. Tywin closed with no blessing, no comfort. He never wasted ink on sentiment. Aegon read the letter twice, then folded it carefully, as if neatness could tame what it contained. Viserys' voice came quiet. He wants me as a shield, he said. Aegon's throat tightened. He wants you alive, he replied. Viserys gave a small, bitter laugh. Alive for what? He asked. For the court to see and feel relieved? For the mob to stare at and forget their hunger? For lists to claim they saved me and demand coin? I am a piece on a board again. Aegon's hands shook slightly. He wanted to deny it, to tell Viserys he was a brother, not a piece. But the truth sat between them like a dragon's shadow. Kings used what they loved, or they lost it. Aegon stood and walked to the window. Dragonstone's night was black, the sea below a faint roar. In the distance, the Dragonmont smoke glowed faintly where it caught moonlight. Somewhere above, his black dragon shifted, claws scraping stone like a knife on whetstone. "What did you think you would find?" Aegon asked softly, not turning. "A castle full of songs? A realm kneeling politely? A childhood waiting on a shelf for you to pick back up?" Viserys said nothing for a long moment. Then he whispered, "I thought I would find you." Aegon's chest clenched. He pressed his palm against cold glass. "You did," he said. Behind him, Viserys' voice turned steadier, as if he had found a spine under all the exhaustion. "Then let them think what they want," he said. "Let Tywin Lannister play his games. Let Lysandro Rogaire offer coin. Let Septon scream. We are still Targaryens." The word Targaryens hit Aegon like a brand. He thought of his mother's face, fierce and doomed. He thought of dragons dying in the pit, of men cheering. He thought of the cannibal's jaws around a hatchling's neck. "We are," Aegon agreed quietly, "and that is why they will never stop reaching for us." He turned back to Viserys and saw something he had not expected. Not just fear in his brother's eyes, but anger, purpose. Aegon swallowed. "Tomorrow," he said, "we make our answer." Viserys' brows knit. "To Lys, to everyone," Aegon replied, because the storm outside was not the only one gathering. The realm itself was tightening, coils drawn around fear and desire, and Aegon could feel the first tremors of the next conflict in the way men whispered and ravens flew. He went to sleep near dawn in a chair by Viserys' bed, sword within reach though it felt absurd. His last waking thought was not of dragons. It was of men. Men with coin, men with faith, men with machines aimed at the sky, and the terrible certainty that the next dance would not be fought by dragons alone. Morning on Dragonstone came gray and sharp, the sea wind smelling of salt and smoke. Aegon did not eat. He could not. The decision sat in his stomach like a stone and made food feel like a lie. They brought the intruders from the mountain into the courtyard just after sunrise. 3 men bound, filthy from ash and fear. One still wore the fanatic grin that had chilled Aegon in the red cavern light. The other 2 looked smaller now that daylight had stripped their shadows away. They shook as if the wind itself were a punishment. Sailors and guards gathered in a half-circle, faces grim. Handlers watched from farther back, eyes flicking upward whenever the black dragon shifted on its high perch. Even the dragons seemed to sense something final in the air. A low rumble rolled across the stone like distant thunder. Baela Targaryen stood to Aegon's right, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Alan Balerion stood to his left, jaw clenched, hands resting on the pommel of his sword as if he would rather be fighting a storm than standing in ceremony. Viserys lingered behind, half hidden in a cloak too large for him, eyes wide and haunted. Aegon had not wanted him there. Viserys had insisted. "If you mean to show the island what you will do," Viserys had said quietly, "then I will not hide like a coward in a bed." Aegon had not known whether to be proud or afraid. The gallows were simple, with lashed together rope hanging. Nothing like the splendor of court punishments. Dragonstone did not dress death in silk. The fanatic lifted his head as they led him forward. His eyes found Aegon, and the grin returned, bright and ugly. "Dragon King," he spat. "Demon King." A murmur rippled through the crowd, anger and fear mixed. Aegon felt his hands tighten at his sides. He wanted to strike the man. He wanted to tear out his tongue. He wanted, most of all, to not be forced into this. Alan's voice came low. "Say the words," he murmured. Aegon swallowed hard. He stepped forward until he stood close enough to see the dirt under the men's nails, the dried blood at one man's lip. He saw how human they were, how small, how capable of setting worlds on fire anyway. "You came into the Dragonmont with oil," Aegon said, voice carrying in the wind. You came to burn eggs. You came to burn dragons. You came to burn men who stood between you and your fear. The fanatic laughed. We came to save, he sneered. We came to cleanse. The seven. Enough, Baela said sharply, and the single word cut through him like a knife. Aegon's throat tightened. He forced himself to continue because stopping would be weakness, and weakness was what men used to justify cruelty. By the Sky Edict, he said, and the words tasted like ash. Any who attempt to steal or destroy dragon eggs are guilty of treason against the realm. The fanatic's grin widened. Treason against demons, he whispered. Aegon felt Viserys shift behind him. He did not look back. Aegon lifted his hand once, a small motion that felt like lifting a sword. Hang them, he said. The ropes went over the men's heads. One of the trembling intruders began to sob, knees buckling. The guards hauled him up anyway, because mercy now meant letting another man with oil find the mountain later. The fanatic did not sob. He smiled as the rope tightened under his jaw. He mouthed words, perhaps prayers, perhaps curses. Aegon stared straight ahead as the trapdoors opened. The bodies dropped. The ropes snapped taut. The men jerked, legs kicking, then slowed, then stilled. The sound of it, the creak of rope, the brief choking gasp, felt louder than any dragon roar. Aegon's stomach rolled. He tasted bile. His hands shook, but he kept them at his sides. He did not let the crowd see him flinch. A king could not flinch. A king could only bleed inward. A low rumble rolled overhead. Aegon's black dragon shifted on its perch, wings flexing slightly. The sound was not approval. It was not condemnation. It was indifference, the terrible indifference of a creature that did not weigh human lives as anything other than noise. Viserys made a small sound behind Aegon. Half inhale, half strangled exhale. Aegon finally turned his head. Viserys' face was pale, eyes wide and wet. He stared at the dangling bodies as if they were part of a story he had heard and never believed until now. His lips trembled, but he did not look away. Baela watched Viserys, and for a heartbeat something like pity flickered across her face. Then it vanished, replaced by hard necessity. Alan's voice came low to Aegon. They will hear of this, he said. Good. Let them. Aegon swallowed. And if it makes them angrier? He whispered. Alan's mouth tightened. Then at least they will be angry and afraid, he replied. Not just angry. The crowd began to disperse slowly, murmuring. Some looked satisfied, grimly reassured that the king would protect the eggs. Others looked unsettled, as if reminded that kings did not only rule, they killed. A few, Aegon noticed, watched the bodies with a strange hunger, as if violence could be comforting when it was directed away from them. Viserys stepped closer, boots scraping stone. He looked up at Aegon, eyes shining with something sharp. This is what it means, he whispered. Aegon's throat tightened. Yes, he said. Viserys' jaw clenched. Then don't hesitate, he said quietly, voice suddenly hard. If you hesitate, they will smell it. Aegon stared at his brother, startled. Viserys looked like a boy who had learned too young what cruelty was for. Not pleasure, but survival. Aegon looked back at the bodies swaying gently in the wind, and he felt something in him harden, not into cruelty, but into the knowledge that he would be forced to do worse before this ended. Above, the dragon's shadow slid across the courtyard stones like a slow-moving blade, and the sea wind carried the smell of death out over the water, toward a realm that was already whispering for more. That night, Dragonstone felt too small for two princes and a sky full of teeth. Aegon could not sleep. The gallows creak lived in his ears. He had ordered deaths before, by signature and seal, but seeing bodies swing in the wind was different. It was intimate. It was a kind of blood that did not wash off. He walked the corridors until the stone under his feet felt warmer than his own skin. Guards trailed at a distance, silent. The castle's torches guttered in drafts as though the flame itself were uneasy. When Aegon passed the chamber where Viserys slept, he found it empty. His heart lurched. Fear surged, old fear sharp as childhood. He pushed the door wider. Blankets were thrown back. The brazier still glowed, but the bed was untouched. "Find him," Aegon snapped at the guard, and the command came out harsher than he intended. Aegon followed instinct more than reason, moving toward the outer terraces where the wind could be heard and the scent of sulfur grew stronger. He climbed steps slick with mist until he reached the highest walk along the Dragonmont's shoulder. There, under a thin moon, he saw Viserys. His brother stood near the edge of the stone terrace, cloak whipped by wind, silver hair loose. He was staring upward, not at stars, but at the shadow perched above. The black dragon crouched on a higher outcrop like a living fortress. Its eyes glowed faintly, ember-bright. Steam curled from its nostrils. It watched Viserys with the still focus of a predator studying prey, yet it did not move to strike. Aegon froze at the sight. His breath caught. He took one careful step forward. Viserys did not turn. "It's watching me," he whispered. Aegon swallowed. "Don't move," he said, though he did not know whether stillness or motion was safer. The black dragon shifted. Its claws scraped stone, a sound that made Aegon's skin prickle. It lowered its head slowly, nostrils flaring, tasting Viserys' scent. Viserys' shoulders tensed. His hands clenched at his sides. He looked like a boy trying not to flinch under a whip. Aegon stepped forward again, voice low. "It knows our blood," he whispered, as if explaining could make it less frightening. "It will not." The dragon moved. It climbed down from its outcrop with a slow grace that belied its size, wings folding tight against its body. It approached Viserys, each step heavy enough to make the terrace stones tremble. Viserys stood rooted, eyes wide. Aegon's heart hammered. He could feel the bond he had with the dragon like a thread pulled taut. He did not know whether it would snap. The dragon stopped a pace from Viserys. It lowered its head until its massive brow hovered inches from Viserys' face. Heat rolled out, making Viserys' hair stir. Viserys' lips parted. His breath came shallow. "Aegon?" he whispered, not looking away. Tell it not to." Aegon's voice caught in his throat. He lifted his hand slightly, palm out. The gesture felt absurd, like holding a paper shield against a storm. "Easy," he said quietly to the dragon, to the world. The dragon's eyes did not leave Viserys. Then it exhaled, slow and warm, and pressed its brow against Viserys' chest. Viserys let out a sound that was half gasp, half sob. His arms lifted without thought, hands splaying against the dragon's scales. For a heartbeat, he looked like a child embracing a mountain. Aegon's stomach twisted, not with joy, with fear. The dragon had pressed its brow to Aegon in the Red Keep courtyard, had chosen him, Tyland had said. That choice had been the one thread holding Aegon's authority together. If the dragon could choose again, if it could place its weight on Viserys, then what did that mean? Viserys' fingers tightened on the scales. It's warm," he whispered, voice cracking with wonder. Aegon stared at the scene, throat tight. The wind screamed around them. The sea roared below. The dragon's warmth made the air shimmer. The dragon lifted its head slightly and looked at Aegon, ember-bright eyes steady. Aegon felt something like recognition pass through that gaze. Not affection, not loyalty, but a simple truth. Blood is blood. Fire answers fire. Aegon stepped forward, voice low. "It is mine," he said, and hated himself for how possessive the words sounded. "You cannot." Viserys turned his head at last, eyes wide and wet. "I didn't call it," he whispered. "I didn't even want to come up here. He swallowed, shame flickering. "I couldn't breathe in that room." The walls felt like lists again. Aegon's anger faltered. He saw Viserys' thin wrists, the haunted look. He remembered his own cages, curfews, chains of obligation, the Iron Throne's teeth. Baela Targaryen's voice came from behind, sharp as a dagger. "Of course it came," she said.
Aegon spoon.
Baela stood at the terrace entrance, cloak pulled tight, eyes hard. She took in the dragon pressed against Viserys and did not look surprised, only grim. "Dragon blood," she said softly. "It tastes it. It's not yours alone, Aegon. Nothing in this world is." Aegon's chest tightened. "It chose me," he said, and the words sounded smaller out here under the vast sky. Baela's gaze did not soften. "Then be worthy of being chosen," she replied, "and be ready for what happens when other men with the same blood reach up." Viserys' hand slid down the dragon's jaw, fingers trembling. The dragon leaned into the touch for a heartbeat, then lifted its head fully. It rumbled low, pleased, dangerous. Aegon felt the rumble in his bones and realized with cold clarity. Viserys' return did not only bring politics and debt. It brought another claimant the dragons might recognize. He looked at his brother, thin, wounded, but alive, and felt a terrifying mixture of love and dread twist together in his chest. The dragon spread its wings slightly, testing the wind, and the shadow it cast swallowed all three of them. Under that shadow, Aegon understood. The sky did not care about succession. The Skycar had only about blood and fire, and blood had just returned to the realm. The Lyseni envoys arrived 2 days later, as if the sea itself obeyed their timetable. Their ship came into Dragonstone's harbor with sails of deep purple, the hull freshly tarred and gleaming despite the salt. They flew no war banner, only a small pennant embroidered with a golden key over a field of white. Alan Balerion cursed softly when he saw it. "Rogaire," he said, "they don't just send letters, they send teeth." The envoys stepped onto the dock in silks that looked obscene against Dragonstone's black stone. There were 3. A tall man with a shaved head and rings on every finger. A woman with hair dyed the color of sunset, her eyes lined in kohl. And a younger man with a book tucked under his arm as if he believed paper could protect him from dragons. They bowed deeply, too deeply, as if performing humility rather than feeling it. The tall man introduced himself in careful common. "Ser Morito Rogaire, cousin to Lysandro Rogaire, and servant to your house." Baela's hand went to her dagger immediately. "Servant?" she repeated, voice dripping contempt. "I've met servants. None wore rings like that." Morito smiled. "Lys is fond of decoration," he said smoothly, "as Westeros is fond of steel." Aegon stood above them on the stone steps that led into the castle, cloaked in black. Viserys stood behind him, half-hidden, watched by guards. Luther Largent had not left Dragonstone yet. He stood to one side like a threat made human. Aegon held Lysandro Rogaire's letter in his hand. "Your master writes pretty," Aegon said quietly. "He also writes as if my brother is coin." Morito's smile did not fade. "Your brother is priceless," he corrected. "And because he is priceless, my cousin returned him without harm. A gift to mend old wounds." Aegon felt his jaw tighten. "A gift demands thanks," he said. Morito spread his hands. "Only if you choose to see it that way," he replied. "We offer assistance, your grace. Nothing more." The woman stepped forward, her voice soft and musical. "My name is Lady Lara," she said, and her smile was sharp. "House Rogaire grieves for your realm. We have watched your city burn. We have watched your people starve. It would be unkind to look away when we have means to help." Aegon stared at her. Her perfume carried even in the sea wind, sweet and cloying. He thought of the gallows. He thought of men with oil pots. He thought of dragons eating hatchlings. "Help?" Aegon repeated. "For what price?" The younger man with the book cleared his throat nervously. "Trade," he said. "Loans, ships to transport grain, skilled builders, and..." He hesitated, glancing upward as if expecting a dragon to swoop down. "And knowledge. Lys has studied Valeria's remnants. We have scholars who..." Baela laughed, a short bark. "Scholars," she said. "You have whores and bankers and men who sell children." Lady Lara's eyes flashed, but she kept her smile. "We have what the world has, princess," she said softly. "We are simply honest about it." Aegon felt Viserys shift behind him. tense. Aegon held up a hand slightly, stay. Marito's rings glinted as he folded his hands. We ask nothing unreasonable, he said. A treaty of friendship. Trade privileges in King's Landing and Driftmark. And his gaze slid upward again, lingering on the Dragonmont. A token, to prove trust. Aegon's stomach tightened. Say it, he said. Marito's smile widened. An egg, he said softly. Not from your secret cavern, no, we would never presume. Only one of the loose eggs you have recovered. A single egg placed under our protection in Lys, as a symbol that the Dragon Lords do not fear partnership. The courtyard went still. Alan Valerion's jaw clenched so hard a vein stood out. Baela's hand tightened on her dagger. Luther Largent shifted, cloak whispering, as if ready to drag the envoys back to their ship by their hair. Aegon stared at Morito Rogaire and felt cold fury rise. You returned my brother, he said, and in the same breath asked for dragonfire in your city. Morito's smile did not waver. A dragon egg is not fire, he replied gently. It is potential, as trade is potential, as peace is potential. Baela stepped forward, voice low and lethal. Potential burns, she said. Lady Lara's gaze slid to Baela, then to Aegon. Your grace, she murmured. Your dragons eat. Your realm is broken. You will need coin. You will need friends. We can be both. Aegon's fingers tightened on the letter until it crumpled. He could see the trap clearly. Refuse, and Lys becomes an enemy with money and ships. Accept, and Lys gains a foothold in dragon blood. Either way, the Rogas placed their hands on his throat. Viserys' voice came quietly from behind Aegon, unexpected and sharp. You want a dragon, Viserys said, because you are afraid of us having them alone. Marito's eyes flicked toward Viserys for the first time, interest sharp. We are afraid of nothing, he said. Viserys' mouth twisted. You are, he replied. That's why you brought me back. That's why you came in person. Because letters aren't enough when the sky belongs to fire. Aegon felt a strange surge of pride and terror at once. Aegon stepped forward, voice quiet and final. No, he said. Noeg, no token. If you wish to trade, trade. If you wish to lend coin, lend it. But you will not take dragon blood across the sea. Marito's smile thinned slightly, just a crack. Then perhaps, he said softly, you will find it difficult to rebuild. Aegon's gaze hardened. Perhaps, he replied, but I will rebuild without putting a dragon in a foreign hand. Lady Lara's eyes lingered on Aegon for a long moment, unreadable. Then she bowed again, slow. As you wish, she said. The younger man with the book swallowed hard, glancing up as a low rumble rolled from somewhere above, the black dragon shifting on its perch, the sound like an answer. Morito Rogaire's smile returned, polished. We will convey your refusal, he said, and we will still pray or your success. Baela's laugh was sharp. Pray on your ship, she snapped. The envoys withdrew, silks fluttering like banners of a different war. As they walked back toward the harbor, Aegon felt the sea wind carry their perfume away, but the scent still clung in his mind like oil. Viserys leaned closer, whispering, They won't stop. Aegon stared at the purple-sailed ship and nodded once. No, he said quietly. They will simply change the shape of their hand. Above, the Dragonmont smoked, and Aegon felt the island's heat under his feet, steady and indifferent. The Rogas had offered friendship. Aegon had refused. Now he would learn how expensive refusal could be. The Cannibal came the night after the Rogas left, as if the old dragon had scented foreign perfume on its mountain and decided to cleanse it with blood. The first warning was not a roar. It was silence, the sudden absence of hatchlings' restless hissing in the lower corridors, the way the dogs in the courtyard tucked their tails and fled. The air itself felt tense, as if the island held its breath. Then the scream came from the eastern watchtower. Dragon! Aegon was in the hall with Viserys when the shout echoed through stone. Viserys went white instantly, as if the word pulled him back into the burning chaos of the gullet. Aegon grabbed his brother's arm. "Stay here," Aegon ordered, and the command came out like Tylan's, sharp, unquestionable. Viserys' fingers tightened on Aegon's sleeve. "Aegon, stay," Aegon repeated. He ran. Baela Targaryen met him in the corridor, already moving, braids swinging, eyes bright with fury. "He's back," she hissed. "And he's hunting." Alan Balerion shouted orders in the courtyard. Men scattering to drive hatchlings back into stone passages. Handlers ran with hooks and chains, their faces pale. The red dragon strained against its reinforced post, steam rolling from its nostrils as it sensed something older in the air. Aegon burst onto the terrace overlooking the Dragonmont slope. The cannibal's silhouette was a moving cliff against the moonlit clouds. Immense wings beating slowly, scarred hide swallowing starlight. It dropped down toward the mountain mouth with brutal certainty, talons gouging rock as it landed. His head swung, searching, jaws parting to taste the air. Below it, near the mouth of a lower tunnel, two young dragons, pale green and smoky gray, had been herded by panicked handlers. They froze when the cannibal's shadow fell. The smaller of the two hissed, wings flaring. The larger tried to back into the tunnel, claws scraping. The cannibal lunged. It seized the smoky gray dragon by the shoulder, teeth punching through scale. The young dragon screamed and thrashed, wings beating uselessly. The cannibal shook it like a dog shakes a rat, snapping bone. Blood splattered black rock. Aegon's stomach turned. He felt heat in his throat, bile rising. Baela's voice came low, fierce. "If it keeps eating them, we lose the nest," she said. "And if it gets into the cavern?" Aegon's mind flashed to dozens of eggs pulsing in red light. The cannibal's jaws around shells. The sound of cracking. The end of everything. Alan shouted from below. "We can't reach it with bolts. Not from this distance." The cannibal tore another chunk free, chewing, unconcerned. The pale green young dragon tried to flee, wings flapping, but the cannibal's tail whipped out and struck it hard enough to fling it into stone. The young dragon slid, stunned. Aegon's black dragon roared from higher on the slope, a sound of fury and challenge. It launched itself down, wings snapping open, and slammed into the cannibal's flank. Teeth snapped.
Klostore.
For a heartbeat, hope surged. His dragon had fought it before, had survived. The cannibal turned, slow and terrible. Its head swung and its jaws snapped shut on the black dragon's neck ridge. Not fully, not a killing bite, but enough to drag. The black dragon roared, twisting, claws scraping, tearing free with sheer force. Blood welled dark on its scales. Aegon's chest seized. He could feel the pain like a pressure in his own throat. Baela moved before Aegon could stop her. She sprinted down the terrace steps toward the red dragon's post. "Unchain it!" she shouted to the handlers. "Now!" Alan lunged after her. "Baela, are you mad?" Baela threw him a look like a blade. "Yes," she snapped, "and so is that thing." The handlers hesitated, terror freezing them. The red dragon hissed, body quivering with violent energy. It wanted to fly. It wanted to burn. It wanted, perhaps, to prove itself against the old predator. Baela grabbed the chain herself, fingers white, and yanked. The iron clasp came free with a clang. The red dragon surged forward, snapping its jaws in excitement, steam blasting from its nostrils. Baela ran alongside it, leaping onto a stone block, then onto the dragon's shoulder ridge with the reckless grace of someone who had done this before and survived. Aegon's breath caught. "Baela!" he shouted. She did not look back. She swung a leg over the red dragon's neck ridge, gripping scale and leather strap the handlers had thrown up at the last moment. "Fly!" she snarled into its ear. "Fly, you bastard!" The red dragon roared high, furious, and launched. Its wings beat once, twice, sending a hurricane of ash and grit into the courtyard. Men staggered and fell. Torches died. The dragon rose, blood red against moonlit cloud, and for a heartbeat it looked like war itself taking wing. Aegon's black dragon was still fighting below, weaving, snarling, trying to keep the cannibal's jaws away from the young green dragon, now half-stunned near the tunnel mouth. The cannibal's milky eyes tracked both opponents, calculating. The red dragon dove. It struck the cannibal's shoulder with a crash that sounded like stone collapsing. Its claws sank into scar tissue. Its jaws snapped, biting deep into the cannibal's neck ridge. The cannibal roared, a sound that rattled the mountain. It flung its head, trying to shake the attacker free. Baela clung to the red dragon's scales like a rider to a storm. Her hair whipped loose. Her mouth was open in a wordless scream. Fear or triumph, Aegon could not tell. The cannibal's tail lashed, striking the red dragon's wing joint. The red dragon shrieked, wing buckling slightly. It nearly fell, catching itself with frantic beats. Aegon felt his heart stop. The black dragon surged in again, using the moment, biting at the cannibal's flank. The cannibal snapped at it, missing by inches, teeth clacking. For the first time, the cannibal looked annoyed. It had expected easy prey. It had foe. ND resistance. The cannibal roared and beat its wings hard, launching upward in a sudden burst that sent rock fragments tumbling. It climbed, dragging the red dragon with it for a heartbeat as the red dragon's claws were still sunk in its hide. Baela shouted something, voice lost in wind. The red dragon tore free, falling for an instant, then catching itself, wings pumping, blood-red silhouette wobbling in the air. The cannibal climbed higher, circling once above the Dragonmont. Its roar rolled across the island like a curse. Then, with a heavy beat of wings, it turned away toward the far ridge, disappearing into cloud. Aegon stood on the terrace shaking, breath ragged. Below, the young green dragon limped toward the tunnel, guided by frantic handlers. The black dragon landed hard on a rock shelf, blood dark on its neck ridge. The red dragon spiraled down, wing held slightly crooked, and landed in the courtyard with a crash of claws and ash. Baela slid off, staggering, face smeared with grit, eyes wild. Alan grabbed her arm, half furious, half relieved. "You will get yourself killed," he snarled. Baela laughed, a harsh, breathless sound. "Not today," she panted. Then her gaze went to Aegon, sharp. "You saw," she said. "We can push it back. Not kill it, but push it." Aegon stared at the sky where the cannibal had vanished. His hands trembled. He could still feel the dragon's roar in his bones. "We cannot let it take the mountain," Aegon whispered. Baela's eyes flashed. "Then we take the sky first," she replied. Aegon looked at his bleeding black dragon, at the red dragon's crooked wing, at the young green dragon limping into darkness. He felt the fragile cage he had built, the order, the oaths shake under the weight of an ancient predator. The cannibal had not been slain. It had only been reminded that the mountain was no longer empty. And Aegon knew it would remember that and return, because hunger did not accept boundaries for long. Tywin Lannister did not sleep the night the cannibal returned. He sat in the Red Keep's council chamber with candles guttering and parchment piled like snowdrifts, listening to the city's pulse through stone. King's Landing breathed differently now, shorter, sharper, as if each breath might be the one that drew dragonfire. Luther Largent's reports came at dusk and again at midnight. Crowds gathering in Flea Bottom, stones thrown at gold cloaks, a sept burned by unknown hands, faith eating itself, Septon Eustace limping through alleys with his mouth swollen and bloody, preaching martyrdom with a voice that had grown hoarse but more potent for the pain. Tywin's blind eyes stared at nothing. His golden hand clicked softly against the table, a rhythm he could not stop. The hand had been a gift meant to restore dignity. It had become a metronome for fear. A raven arrived from Dragonstone just before dawn. Munkin read it aloud, voice tight. "The cannibal has returned," the maester said. "Killed one young dragon, driven off by Baela Targaryen on the red dragon and by the king's black dragon. The red dragon's wing is damaged. The king requests men and iron to reinforce the mountain approaches." Silence settled. Tywin's jaw tightened until it hurt. He had feared the cannibal for years as a story. Now it was an argument no council could win. He wants men and iron, Tylan said softly, and there was bitterness in the words. As if men and iron ever stopped hunger. Munkin swallowed. What do we tell him? Tylan leaned back slightly, fingers of his golden hand flexing. He pictured Dragonstone's black slopes, eggs pulsing in warmth, a wild dragon older than their laws claiming the ridge. He pictured the boy king, Aegon, trying to hold all of it with ink and fear. He pictured Viserys returned like a blade drawn from the sea. Aegon cannot lose Dragonstone, Tylan said quietly. If the cannibal takes the mountain fully, the nest becomes chaos. Chaos becomes rumor. Rumor becomes invasion. Munkin's voice trembled. And the city? Tylan's mouth tightened. The city will burn if we show weakness, he said. It will burn if we show cruelty. It will burn if we show anything at all. We are balancing on ash. A guard entered, breathless. My lord, he said. Septon Eustace's followers are gathering again, at the Dragonpit ruin, larger than before. Tylan's blind eyes did not change. Of course they are, he murmured. He bleeds and they call it holy. Munkin's hands tightened on the raven parchment. We should arrest him, he whispered. End it. Tylan's golden hand tapped once. Arrest him, he echoed softly. And then what? They riot. They burn seps. They storm gates. Largent kills them in the streets. The city becomes a slaughterhouse. And in the smoke, some clever man slips a knife into the king's back, or into Viserys, or into mine. Munkin's voice shook. Then we do nothing? Tylan's jaw flexed. We do something else, he said. We change the story. Munkin stared. How? Tylan's voice went colder. We give them a miracle, he said. We let them see Viserys Targaryen alive. Munkin inhaled sharply. That is dangerous, he whispered. Tylan's blind gaze faced forward, unyielding. Everything is dangerous, he replied. But hunger needs distraction. Faith needs a sign. If the city is chanting Dragonbane, we give them a brother returned from death. They will whisper of gods and fate and stop whispering about storming the Red Keep. For a day. For a week, if we are fortunate. Munkin's mouth tightened. And Lys. Tylan's golden hand clicked. Lys will claim credit, he said. They will demand coin. They will demand favors. They will demand a dragon egg and pretend it is friendship. Munkin swallowed. Will we pay? Tylan was silent for a moment. Then he said very softly, we will pay in the only coin we have time. He turned his head slightly. Send ravens to Dragonstone, he ordered. Tell Aegon to keep Viserys close. Tell him not to parade the boy yet. Tell him to let the rumor of Viserys' survival spread first. Quietly in taverns, in seps, in markets. Let the city begin to talk before it begins to act. Munkin hesitated. And Eustace. Tylan's golden hand clenched. Let Largent break his gatherings early, he said. Not with slaughter, with fear, with arrests of the loudest, the most violent. Keep Eustace alive for now. A dead martyr is a torch. A living martyr is a man who can still be shamed, discredited, bought, or broken. Munkin flinched at the coldness, but he did not argue. He had learned during the dance that mercy without power was merely dying politely. Outside the chamber, faintly, the city's bells rang. Sept bells, warning bells, the sound of a populace that had forgotten how to trust silence. Tylan listened, fingers tapping. He imagined the cannibals' roar over Dragonstone, and he imagined the mob's roar over the Dragonpit ruin, and he felt the sick symmetry of it. The realm was roaring from both ends. He thought of Aegon's face the day the boy pressed his seal into wax, eyes too old. He thought of Viserys' return, a blade dropped into a pool already full of knives. We build cages, Tylan whispered to himself, voice barely audible. And then we pray the beasts inside them do not learn they are stronger than iron. He straightened, because lords did not slouch under fear. Prepare the city, he said aloud. The sky will not be quiet again. And somewhere far across the sea, On Dragonstone's ridge, the cannibals circled in cloud, waiting for the next opening in the cage. They tried to move the eggs in secret, and secrecy lasted exactly as long as it took the sea to carry sound. Alan Valerion chose a night when the moon was thin and the wind hard. 2 ships were readied in Dragonstone's harbor, small, fast, with holds lined in sand and ash to cradle what could not be dropped. The eggs selected were not the largest, not the ones pulsing most violently, but even so each took 4 men to roll into place, groaning under the weight. Aegon stood on the dock, cloak whipped by wind, watching sailors sweat and curse softly. Viserys stood beside him, face tight, eyes fixed on the eggs as if they were sleeping storms. Baela paced like a caged wolf, the red dragon behind her restless, wings still slightly crooked from the cannibal's blow. Dragonstone and the other sworn riders stood ready, their dragons crouched on black rock with eyes reflecting torchlight. They were not taking the eggs far. Only to a smaller volcanic islet off Dragonstone's eastern jaw, bare rock with steam vents and no people. A place where, if something hatched wrong, it would burn only stone and sea. Aegon knew it was a desperate measure, but desperate measures were all he had. A low rumble rolled overhead as the black dragon landed on a nearby outcrop, settling like a mountain behind them. Its presence made men move faster, as if afraid of disappointing it. Alan approached Aegon, voice low. "If the cannibal finds the eggs, he'll follow," he said. "We have to scatter the nest or he'll eat us out of a future." Aegon nodded once. "Do it," he said. The ships pushed off at first light, oars cutting dark water. Aegon watched from the shore until the hulls became shadows. He felt something in his chest loosen, relief or dread, he could not tell. The sea did not let them have that relief for long. Halfway to the islet, the leading ship's lookout screamed. Aegon did not hear the scream, but he saw the distant movement, small, fast craft emerging from the mist like shark's fins. 3, then more. Stepstones raiders or Triarchy men or both. Their sails were low and gray, their prows cutting water with vicious speed. Alan's ships tried to turn. Oars churned. Men shouted. But the raiders were already close enough that Aegon could see the glitter of wet metal on their decks. Then something rose on one of the raiders' prows. Wooden arms cranked back. Aegon's stomach dropped. Ballistae, the Triarchy's prayer. The bolt flew. It cut through mist like a thrown spear. A black line aimed not at a dragon but at the ship's belly. It struck the leading ship just above the waterline with a crack that carried even across the waves. Wood splintered. Men screamed. The ship lurched, taking water fast. Aegon's breath caught. His hands clenched on the stone parapet as he watched from Dragonstone's shore, helpless. On the second ship, sailors shouted, trying to row harder, to flee. Another ballista bolt flew and struck the mast, snapping it like kindling. The sail collapsed. The ship spun. The raiders closed in, grappling hooks flying like claws. Aegon felt cold fury rise. He turned and shouted, "Dragon!" His black dragon moved before the word fully left his mouth. It launched from the outcrop with a roar, wings beating a storm into the air. The shadow of it swallowed the shoreline. It shot out over the water, faster than any ship could dream of. Behind it, Baela's red dragon leapt as well, wing crooked but furious. Dragonstone's dragon, smoky green, followed, smaller than the others but still enormous by any sane measure. Aegon ran down the steps toward the lower cliff where he could see the sea better, Viserys close behind despite guards' protests. Aegon did not stop him. If Viserys wanted to watch the sky bleed, perhaps it was better he learned now. Over the water, the black dragon roared and dove. The first blast of fire hit the nearest raider craft, turning its deck into a torch. Men leapt into the sea, screaming. The smell of burning pitch rolled toward Dragonstone on the wind. The raiders scattered, but the ballista crews did not stop. They cranked again with desperate speed, aiming upward now, trying to do what men always tried when faced with dragons. Kill the rider, if not the beast. A bolt flew toward Baela. Aegon's heart seized. The bolt cut through air and struck the red dragon's wing membrane near the joint. The membrane tore with a wet rip. Baela's dragon shrieked, twisting violently. Baela clung to its neck ridge, hair whipping, one hand slick with blood that was not hers. Baela's dragon nearly fell, caught itself, wings beating unevenly, blood-red silhouette wobbling. Baela screamed something, rage or command, and the dragon climbed. Aegon's throat closed. He watched Baela's near fall and understood with a cold clarity. The world had found a way to hurt them. The black dragon turned mid-dive and roared, a sound of pure fury. It swept low over the ballista craft that had fired, its tail smashing the machine to splinters. Then it breathed fire again, and the craft disappeared in a bloom of flame and steam. Dragonstone's dragon dove on another raider, claws raking, teeth snapping. The water churned with bodies and burning debris. The sea itself seemed to boil under dragonfire. Within minutes the raiders broke, those who could fleeing into mist, those who could not burning or drowning. The surviving ships, Allen's, battered and leaking, were towed back toward Dragonstone by desperate oars and a dragon shadow hovering above like a protective storm. When the first damaged ship limped into harbor, men were bailing water with buckets, faces gray. One egg had been lost, gone into the sea when the ship lurched, swallowed by black water without a sound. Another egg had cracked slightly, the shell leaking heat like breath. Sailors stared at it with terror, as if expecting it to hatch and punish them for failing. Allen jumped onto the dock, soaked, blood on his sleeve from a splintered W. Ound. His face was hard with rage. "They knew," he snarled. "They knew we were moving them." Baela landed hard in the courtyard above, red dragon stumbling, wing torn. She slid off, swearing, face smeared with blood and salt. "They're not just pirates," she panted. "That bolt, those crews, they were trained." Aegon stood at the dock, fists clenched, staring at the cracked egg as if it were a prophecy. Viserys stared too, pale. "They can hurt us," Viserys whispered. Aegon's throat tightened. He looked out over the sea where smoke still drifted. He imagined ballistae lining coasts, bolts aimed upward like prayers. "Yes," Aegon said softly. "They can." The black dragon landed on the rocks above, wings folding, eyes ember bright. It looked down at the harbor carnage with a stillness that was almost contemptuous. Aegon looked up at it and felt his fear change shape. It was no longer only fear of dragons. It was fear of what men would do to dragons, and what dragons would do in return. The sky had become a battlefield, and the first bolts had already flown. After the raid, Dragonstone stopped pretending it could be a sanctuary. The sea wind carried the smell of burned pitch for days. The harbor remained littered with charred debris hauled in by the tide. Sailors spoke in low voices, as if loud words might summon another bolt from the mist. The cracked egg was moved back into the mountain under heavy guard, its fissure sealed with warmed wax and ash like a wound bandaged too late. Aegon did not know if it would hatch or die. He only knew the sea had taken one already, and the sea never returned what it swallowed. Baela's red dragon could no longer fly without tearing its wing further. The handlers stitched the membrane with crude needlework and treated it with salves that smelled of herbs and smoke. Baela prowled the castle like a restless predator, furious at being grounded. She spoke of the ballista bolt as if it were a personal insult. "They dared," she kept saying, eyes bright with rage. "They dared." Dragonstone sat in the courtyard one evening, hands stained with soot, staring at the sea. Aegon joined him without speaking. Joran's dragon lay nearby, breathing slow, a massive flank rising and falling like a bellows. "They shot at me," Joran said quietly, without looking up. "I thought dragons made men piss themselves. I thought the sky was ours." Aegon swallowed. "The sky is never anyone's," he said. "It's only borrowed until someone reaches up." Joran nodded slowly, jaw tight. "Then we reach up first," he murmured. Viserys found Aegon on the highest terrace at dawn, the place where the black dragon liked to perch and watch the horizon. The sea was calm that morning, deceptively so, as if it had not swallowed an egg and nearly swallowed ships. Viserys looked smaller in the cold light, silver hair blown by wind. Yet his eyes held something sharper now, as if fear had been hammered into purpose. "I want to ride," Viserys said. Aegon's breath caught. He turned sharply. "No," he said immediately. Viserys' jaw clenched. "You don't get to decide that," he said. Aegon felt anger flare, hot and sudden. "I am king," he snapped. Viserys flinched, then steadied. "And I am your brother," he replied, voice hard. "And I am tired of being carried like luggage by men with coin." Aegon's throat tightened. He glanced at the black dragon perched above them, its ember-bright eyes half-lidded. The dragon did not move, simply watched as if listening. "You saw what those bolts did," Aegon said, forcing his voice lower. "You saw Baela nearly fall. You saw men learning how to reach the sky. If you climb onto a dragon, you become a target painted in blood." Viserys' mouth twisted. "I was a target in Lys," he said. "I was a target on the sea. I have been a target since the day I was born with this hair." He lifted a hand, fingers trembling slightly. "At least on a dragon I can choose where I fall." Aegon stared at him, throat raw. He wanted to forbid it. He wanted to lock Viserys in the safest room and stand outside like a wall. But safety was a story men told themselves until the door opened. Aegon exhaled slowly. "Which dragon?" he asked, and hated himself for the question. Viserys' eyes flicked up toward the black dragon. "It came to me," he whispered. It pressed its head to me." Aegon's stomach tightened. "That does not mean." "It means something," Viserys interrupted softly. "It means it recognizes our blood. It means we can't pretend the dragons will only look at you." Aegon's hands curled into fists. He looked out at the horizon where storms gathered in faint lines. He thought of Tyland's plans, of the city's hunger, of the faith's chanting, of Lys's perfumed letters, of triarchy bolts slicing the air. He turned back to Viserys. "If you ride," he said quietly, "you do it under oath, under the order. You answer to Baela, to Alan, to Luther Largent, to me." Viserys nodded once. "Quick." "Good," he said. "Give me chains I can choose." Aegon's mouth tightened. "And if the court uses you against me?" he asked, the fear he had kept hidden finally spilling out. "If men whisper that you should be king because dragons bow to you?" Viserys' gaze steadied, and for a heartbeat he looked older than his years. "Then we kill the whisper," he said softly. "Not each other." Aegon's throat closed. He stared at his brother and felt something break open in him. Not weakness, but relief. Not because the danger vanished, but because for the first time he did not feel alone under the weight. Above, the black dragon shifted, claws scraping stone. A low rumble rolled out, deep and approving, or perhaps simply hungry. Aegon looked up and met the ember-bright gaze. He did not know if dragons understood promises. He only knew they understood blood. "Tyland will want you in King's Landing," Aegon said. Viserys' jaw tightened. "Let him," he replied. "Let the city see I'm alive. Let Lysandro Rogaire see his chain didn't close. Let the faith choke on their prayers." Aegon exhaled slowly. "We will go soon," he said. "But we go with dragons overhead and ships beneath and men watching every wave." Viserys nodded. "Then we go," he said. Aegon turned toward the castle, cloak snapping in the wind. Below, handlers moved like ants around wounded wings and steaming eggs. Far off, the sea glittered as if innocent. Aegon felt the future press on him like a storm front. The world had learned to shoot at the sky. Now Aegon had to learn how to keep the sky from falling, on his city, on his brother, on the realm he had inherited in ash. He descended the steps with Viserys beside him, and above them the black dragon spread its wings slightly, tasting the wind, as if eager for the next battle. Because peace was over. The sky had become a crown, and everyone wanted to wear it.